Hey everyone, I'm Megyn Kelly. Welcome to the Megyn Kelly Show and happy Friday. Later, we've got Tim Dillon here with me in studio. I cannot wait to see him. You know this guy, he's brilliant. He is so funny and clever. He came on, I looked it up, it was like episode 50. I think it was episode 50, right in there, between 50 and 60 of the show. This is when we were in the kids' playroom, only audio. We loved him back then. He was so funny. I remember just crying. I was laughing so hard. And then we had him again a couple years later, and now he's back, and I can't wait to talk to him in person. I've never met him in person. Anyway, it's going to be great. So prepare to have fun in our second hour. But we begin with a different kind of fun, a fun that everybody loves, and that's Kelly's Court. And there's a ton to get to. We've got some interesting and bizarre debates popping up about a lot of stories in the news, including that terrible stabbing of the high school football player down in Texas. Plus, we got big updates with Diddy, Harvey Weinstein, Bryan Kohberger, and Blake Lively. And here to discuss it all are the OG Kelly's Court panelists, back when it was Kendall's Court, Arthur Aidala, trial attorney and managing partner at Aidala, Bertuna and Caymans PC, and host of the Arthur Aidala Power Hour, and Mark Eiglarsh, criminal defense attorney at Eiglarsh Law, which you can find at speaktomark.com, speaktomark.com. Don't miss a moment. Subscribe to this show on YouTube and follow me on Insta, Facebook, and X. Okay, so you're thinking about what to get that person who has everything. Or maybe you are that person that has everything and you just happen to appreciate the finer things. Well, look, we're coming up on Mother's Day and Father's Day. And it's always hard to buy for those, right? Like another flower. Well, come on. Try harder. Try hot salt. Yes, I said it. Hot salt. Exquisite, savory heat. Now you're interested, so let me tell you about Firecracker Farm. It's a wonderful little family company that makes hot salt, a delightful spice-infused sea salt. It has the perfect amount of heat and amazing flavor that makes everything taste better. Word is getting out and people are loving it. That is because it's made with love. People can feel it and taste it. It's a small batch family operation, so supplies are limited. It comes in sleek stainless steel push grinders, which you can take them anywhere. When you run out, they have refills. A little too spicy for you? Just mix it in with some regular sea salt to tame the heat, but you won't need to. It's blended to perfection. Honestly, it's the best thing to happen to food since fire. So what are you waiting for? Go to firecracker.farm right now and use the code MK at checkout for a special discount. That's firecracker.farm, code MK. Get some hot salt before it's all gone. You'll thank me. Guys, welcome back.
I love speaking to Mark. I love speaking to Mark. It's like my favorite thing to do, Megyn Kelly.
Same. I love speaking to Mark.
I love talking to him. Yeah, sure. Why not?
Okay, so let's start. There's a lot of places we can start. Why don't we just kick it off with this, since our pal Arthur over here is going back to court for Harvey Weinstein, who, thanks to Arthur, we talked about this, when he did it, has a new trial in New York on these criminal allegations against him that he's a sexual pervert. And Arthur represented him in the trial, but he got convicted. But then Arthur got the conviction thrown out because they let everybody and her mother take the stand, even people who weren't plaintiffs or victims alleged in the case. And the Court of Appeals of New York State said, you can't do that. That wasn't fair to Mr. Weinstein. So now he's back in court, and the jury selection begins on Tuesday?
Yeah, jury selection begins on Tuesday. And Megyn, that's the biggest hurdle here. It's 90% of the cases, 99% of the cases Mark and I are involved with, you walk into a courtroom and jurors don't know who the defendant is. They don't know what the charges are. You have a clean slate. So at least you have a shot at the jury reaching a verdict based on the evidence they hear in court. Here, the huge hurdle we have is, God forbid, they base the evidence on what they see on TMZ or People Magazine or something along those lines. So the jury selection part is going to be tedious because we're going to ask, okay, can we have a raise of hands? Who knows who this is? Okay, fine. And then when you say raise your hands if you know about this case, you then need to call them in the back individually because you don't want them to blurt out, oh, yeah, I know Harvey's a rapist and he's a bad guy and he killed his this and killed his cat. And so one at a time, you have to ask them what they know and whether they can get over their own personal knowledge, what's in the hard drive of their brain, to then just base their verdict on the facts that they're going to hear in this trial. Not a trial in California, not a trial in New York 5 years ago, not some documentary on Netflix. So jury selection here, probably more than any case I've ever been involved with, is probably the most important part of the whole case.
And Megyn, let me say something about Arthur and this case. He won't tell you this, but it is so much more challenging the second time around because now you've got the trial transcripts, thousands and thousands of extra pages that you didn't have in the first trial. And you must go through every word line by line to use for your advantage. So Arthur is being very generous with his time right now because if it was me, I'd be knee deep in preparation.
I know. I'm kind of amazed he's here.
Yeah, and Megyn, talking to you as a friend, the hardest part right now, honestly, is my kids. Like I have a 3-year-old and an 8-year-old, and I barely seen them. And like Arthur's like opening day of baseball on Saturday, so I'll be there for 2 hours, and then I come back to the office, and his face just drops. He's like, "Daddy, you got to go to work again?" But you have someone's life in their hands, and if Harvey gets convicted, he's going to die in prison. Period. Amen. End of story. And that's an enormous amount of pressure. It's going to be a 5-6 week thing, and I will tell you this. I'll give you guys a little preview. I am seriously, this isn't puffery, seriously contemplating putting him on the stand because it's a he said, she said. There is no other evidence. There's no medical evidence. There's no video. It's just their word. And I think in today's day and age, I think a jury wants to say, look, if you didn't do it, guy, you come up here and tell us you didn't do it. So, and Mark will tell you, it's the most excruciating decision the defense has to make. But
worst. Arthur, I feel for you.
I'm probably going to Rikers Island this weekend to start prepping him just so that we're ready to go if he needs to take the stand.
I hope it doesn't come down to it because that's the one time you cannot control that guy. And you're not going to find, it's going to be difficult to find a unanimous jury that actually likes him. And I say that generically. It's hard for all the jurors to like your client.
But like can't be the goal when it's Harvey. But isn't the goal, Arthur, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't the goal, you're not going to love this guy. I concede that up front. This is not somebody you want marrying your daughter. But he did not commit sexual crimes against these women. These women said yes. These women went along with it. They had career aspirations. They didn't make clear to him that they were unwilling participants. Only after the fact, when the Me Too era came along, was it suddenly, I was a crime victim in that moment.
She's good, Arthur. You should bring her on.
Almost decades later with the complaints made. And it's no secret because it's out there in the public. They all received a lot of money, like hundreds of thousands of dollars. Look, we have something to work with. If this was not Harvey Weinstein, if this was Harvey Jones and a jury came in and knew nothing about this, I would be very confident. Right now, Mr. Eiglarsh, the 2 words I would love to hear is hung jury or mistrial at the end of the case, because they said the preconceived notions that people have going into that courtroom is really the Mount Everest we have to climb.
Yeah, there's no presumption of innocence. Yeah,
I know, but I have to say, I think maybe I'm the exception, but even though I've listened to countless testimonials by women who said that they were the victims of a Me Too situation, I think I could go in there and say, but I will judge this case based on the evidence that is put before me and figure out whether in these incidents brought to me, he committed a crime. I really think I could do it. I think my fellow New Yorkers can do it. I mean, New Yorkers are tough as balls. Like they're smart.
I think you can do it. But a Manhattan jury pool where Donald Trump got 17% of the vote, I just think there's just so
But it's not a Republican-Democrat thing. Republicans don't like sexual crimes.
I know, but they're all about believe all women. They're all about the Attorney General, Letitia James, believe all women, believe all women. They lean heavily in that direction.
And they believe the media, too. That's another problem. Once they've read something in black and white, a lot erroneously think that that's the truth. It's hard to overcome.
Well, I think if you're worried about believe all women, Arthur, I would say that you don't need my advice to try a case. But you might want to hit that one right on the head and say, I understand that that's the line. And maybe you even do believe. Maybe you believe that he crossed lines. He was inappropriate. You don't like him. But that's a far cry from he committed rape, he committed sexual assault. And, you know, it's either that or it's you had consensual partners who maybe were uncomfortable but didn't express it. You had people who were there, maybe they did feel duress, but without telling him until 20 years later, how was he to know? I mean, what makes it a crime is when you don't have the consent of the other woman. Like one of the women, as I understand it, Arthur, it's been a while, but she's alleging that he performed like forcible oral sex on her. And, you know, I think you could definitely fairly get into how does that happen, right? Like, how can that be done in a forcible, non-consensual way? Or is it more likely it happened where the man thought he did have permission and learned later that the woman was there against her will?
The state's going to get into that. That's what the prosecution has to do. And they will. And then they're going to drop it in Arthur's lap when they're done in graphic detail, leaving you with an image of how that could have happened.
Since I'm getting some free legal advice here, how about this one, Megyn? Because I really think this is probably the accurate. They were kind of friends with benefits. You know, he was getting something from them and they were going to Oscar parties and they were going to the Cannes Film Festival and they were having access to things that they would never have access to. These were not these caliber of people. And in return, you know, he had a nice 15 minutes, you know, in the bedroom with them.
Mm-hmm. Do any of them expressly allege that they said no in the moment and that they made clear with their body language or their voice explicitly that it was a no?
Well, they do now. You know, in the grand jury 6 years ago, they were a lot more hesitant. And now 6 years later, you know, it's much more, oh, absolutely. It was absolutely clear that that's not what I wanted. So you know how testimony develops over the course of time.
Mm-hmm. All right. When he gives his closing argument, Mark, come up here and you and I can go together.
Nice. Love it.
This case, honestly, Megyn, this case is actually more about the opening argument. I truly believe that. I think you need to set the juror's mindset from the beginning, what they should be listening for, where the holes in the people's case is, where the evidence that they're not going to hear. They're not going to hear from any law enforcement that things were admitted to, not from any medical doctors that anyone for treatment, not from any psychologists or psychiatrists. There's no DNA, there's no video, there's no audio. It's just them. And you have to just judge their credibility, judge their body language on the stand, listen to all the inconsistencies that are going to come out, and then you tell me whether there's a reasonable doubt.
Arthur, I agree with you. I think it starts in jury selection. You go right up to the line of pre-trying your case, take one step back, and that's where you need to be to make sure you get the right jurors.
This is kind of exciting. Now I'm kind of looking forward to it in a way I hadn't been before. I'm definitely going to swing by. I hope I do get to see your opening. I got
all this free advice. Thank you. I got free advice from two greats. I'm excited.
All right. So moving on to cases on our docket. I want to kick it off with this case down in Texas. It's so disturbing. These two high school kids, like this didn't need to happen.
Right.
The 17-year-old assailant, Carmelo Anthony, is arrested and charged with murder over the stabbing death of 17-year-old Austin Metcalf. It happened on April 2nd. Austin and his twin brother and this Carmelo Anthony, who belonged to a different school, were all at a track meet as spectators. And I don't totally understand because I've heard different versions of this, but it appears that at the track meets, they would set up these tarps and then various kids would hang out under the tarps. And Austin and his twin brother and a group from their school were under one tarp. There were many tarps. And Carmelo Anthony, who was from a different school and definitely not part of their posse, came under the tarp and appears to have sat in Austin's seat. Again, the allegations on exactly where he was and what the offense was, it remains somewhat fuzzy to me, but it was definitely under a tarp at a track meet. And the allegation is that Austin went over to Carmelo. This is from the police report, that Austin went over and Austin told Anthony that he needed to move out from under their team's tent. And Anthony grabbed his bag, again, quoting here, this is a full description. Officer Taylor Wetzel wrote this based on what a witness told him. Then Carmelo Anthony grabbed his bag after being told he had to move and reached inside of it and proceeded to tell Austin, "Touch me and see what happens." No one really thought Anthony really had a weapon in his bag. And Austin proceeded to touch Anthony. And then Anthony told Austin to punch him and see what happens. A short time later, Austin grabbed Anthony to tell him to move. And Anthony pulled out what was recalled as a black knife and stabbed Austin once in the chest and then ran away. Another officer spoke to two witnesses, one being the victim's twin brother, Hunter Metcalf. They were hysterical. So what we're hearing from Carmelo Anthony's defense lawyer is that they're going to argue this was self-defense. That,
of course,
he said, touch me and find out what happens. And then Austin touched him. And therefore he was in fear and pulled out a knife. I mean, you could argue self-defense if he had pulled out his fists and started punching Austin Metcalf. We wouldn't be here. The law would not be involved. But Mark, he pulled out a knife and stabbed him in the chest. And
right.
You tell me, but the self-defense laws in Texas and in all states require proportionality.
Of course. And when I said, of course, that's a defense, it's because you're not going to argue insanity and you're not going to argue it was, someone else who did it. It's clearly going to be self-defense. And the question is, do the facts rise to the level where he reasonably feared death or great bodily harm from this guy? And that hinges upon really what are the witnesses saying? We don't have all the statements. Maybe there's a few who say that the victim did grab him, because I did read that occurred. I've heard touching, I've heard grabbing. I don't know. But if it was just like you read, I think that falls short of reasonably believing death or great bodily harm. And here's the other thing. The other thing is he was the instigator. He, meaning the defendant. That's a problem. When you're the instigator, when then you're the initial aggressor, I think you might lose some protections that you normally have.
Can't claim self-defense. That's exactly right. If you started it, right, and the other guy is like, okay, let's go, then you can't say, I had to do it to protect myself. Here is Tim Pool. He's a podcaster, Arthur. He was on his show talking about this, and I'd love to get your reaction to what he says here. Watch.
Imagine you are invited to a party at someone else's house, and you are legally carrying a firearm. And then a fight breaks out, and or like an altercation breaks out between you and some guy, and there's drinking involved or whatever. I'm not trying to make a 1-for-1 scenario. I'm trying to create a potential scenario separate from this one with similarities. You go to a party. Let's say you go to a party, and some guy starts saying stuff like, "Yo, man, get out of here." And you're like, "I can do what I want. I was invited to the party." Verbal altercation escalates, and then the dude, you're standing there, and you pull your sweater back, and you've got a gun. And you put your hand up and say, Don't come close to me, bro. I'm warning you right now. Do not come close. Do not take another step." Then the guy grabs your arm and makes a move. So you draw your weapon and you use it. Okay, make the argument. You have no right to defend yourself when you're being attacked by a guy. Make the argument. By all means, go ahead and do so. I ain't going to do it.
That's a ground ball. That's a ground ball. I mean, that's a law school where you can't. So, sorry, you have to get punched in the face. You're not allowed to execute someone with a gun who's going to punch you in the nose. And just the way the law is, I believe, in all 50 states. You just said it, Megyn. There's a proportionality. Let me just tell you how this case is going to get handled in Texas with this 17-year-old. How it should get, and this is the reality, and Mark will back me up. Eiglarsh is going to get hired. He's going to get some kind of a child psychologist or some kind of child psychiatrist. They're going to do a whole buildup of this kid, who he is, where he's from, the defendant I'm talking about, who he is, where he's from, what his background is, any kind of mitigation whatsoever. And then you're going to go in and you're going to sit down with one of the lead prosecutors of the Homicide Bureau in that jurisdiction. And you're going to be like, look, you and I know that based on the witnesses, based on the evidence that we have, yes, there's a possibility I could go in front of a jury with a straight face and say self-defense, but that's too big of a risk for a 17-year-old kid who might spend the rest of his life in jail. We're not minimizing the loss of life of another 17-year-old, but let's not try to have two absolute complete tragedies. And let's talk about a real number, where the kid's going to spend a lot of time in jail, but not the rest of his life in jail, which would probably be the case if he goes to trial and loses, and you sit down and two qualified lawyers, very experienced lawyers, with the approval of the judge, work out some sort of plea bargain. This is not,
that makes perfect sense.
This is not a trial.
But there's a lot behind these two sides right now. They've
Right.
people are lining up on both sides of this case. The GoFundMes for each guy are almost exactly the same amount. Let's call it $325,000 that people have donated to both, because people defending Carmelo Anthony think that this was self-defense and he's getting railroaded potentially because he's black. And people on the Metcalf family side say this is outrageous. At worst, if you take all the allegations about Austin Metcalf as true, at worst, what he did was put his hands on a guy who refused to leave a section that he wasn't seated in, and put his hands on him at the guy's, invitation to say, try to make me. And you don't get a knife in the heart for that. I'll read you the law on self-defense in Texas. A person is justified in using deadly force against another when and to the degree the actor reasonably believes the deadly force is immediately necessary, A, to protect the actor against the other's use or attempted use of unlawful deadly force. So it's not any kind of force or bodily harm. It's you have to reasonably think that you need to immediately use deadly force to prevent unlawful deadly force against you. Or, and here, okay, let's see, maybe Carmelo Anthony has something under the or clause, to prevent the other's imminent commission of aggravated kidnapping, murder, sexual assault, aggravated sexual assault, robbery, or aggravated robbery. Not even aggravated assault is listed there. So
Megyn,
there's nothing.
Arthur was 100% correct, articulate, passionate in exactly assessing how this is going to go down if this is being handled reasonably. Whether it's me representing him or someone else, you don't take the risk of going to trial with these facts, assuming there's no additional facts we don't know about. Like, did the kid say, I'm going to kill you now, and then he stabs him?
Yeah.
And again, I'm making stuff up. I don't know. You'll sit down with a prosecutor after you have your client evaluated. If the prosecutors aren't playing ball and giving you a reasonable outcome, maybe you like the judge is compassionate and reasonable. You look for some type of downward departure below what he would normally be getting, and you look for some compassion from the judge. But politics will play a huge role in this case.
But and Megyn, in terms of the GoFundMe stuff, the biggest joke about the GoFundMe stuff has got to do with that kid Luigi Mangione, who executed the executive, and the women are sending him letters. And people are saying, "Oh, he's got a chance at trial. People are into him." Yeah, wait until those 12 jurors see the deceased wife on the witness stand, who has to identify the body and talk about how her kids miss their father, and they watch that video of him executing him, the shooting over and over and over again. Stop it! It's not going to happen.
Yeah, we're just not going to get to, and I just said we're not going to get to the point in this country where what's foreseeable is a knife to the heart amongst 17-year-old boys who are scuffling, even arguing impolitely. I don't know exactly what happened. We'll find out over a seat at a track meet. Like, that's just, no one is going to interpret the law to say it was a reasonable response, because that's what self-defense is trying to factor in. Was your response reasonable under the circumstances? Texas has got the castle doctrine where you don't have to retreat. If somebody comes into your home, you got your gun, you can shoot them. So this isn't that. This is not that. This kid got asked a question, please leave, or told to leave, and he started to threaten, make me. And Austin allegedly put hands on him, and he stabbed him through the heart. In no world is that going to qualify as self-defense. I'll let Andrew Branca, he's been on the show many times in connection with the Kyle Rittenhouse case. He's got a whole blog called The Law of Self-Defense. He's very pro-Second Amendment. He took a look at the police report. Here's what he said, SOT 7.
Austin, the victim, had told Anthony, the stabber, that he needed to move out from under the team's tent, and Anthony grabbed his bag, opened it, and reached inside and proceeded to tell Austin, touch me and see what happens. No one really thought Anthony really had any weapons in his bag, and Austin proceeded to touch Anthony, and then Anthony told Austin to punch him and see what happens. This is provocation with intent, folks. These are facts I had not heard before. The stabber is provoking the victim to use force for the purpose of being able to inflict deadly force upon him. That's the most severe form of provocation with intent, and loses you self-defense as a legal defense. These are bad facts for Carmelo Anthony.
This is what you were saying, Mark, because the second part of that statute that I read that speaks to deadly force in defense of person reads, the actor's belief, that you're about to face deadly bodily harm, that the belief that the deadly force was immediately necessary as described above is presumed to be reasonable if the actor did not provoke the person against whom the force was used. So that provocation, he's saying, make me is provocation.
I'm going to argue the other side of this because not legally. Legally, we've already done the analysis on it and it's solid. But you put people in the box in Texas, okay? We would think, without knowing that, there's $300,000+ being donated to the defendant's fund, that there couldn't be anyone supporting this type of activity. But that shows what we're talking about here. You go to a jury trial, there may be a few people who just say, I don't care what the facts are, or those facts are enough for me. He reasonably feared, or else he wouldn't have stabbed him. I'm telling you, it's not a slam dunk jury trial because of who's going to sit on this jury.
Well, not only that, but unfortunately, the internet has done its thing, and they have tried to paint the victim here, Austin Metcalf, as a white supremacist, for which there is zero support. It's ridiculous. Right. They're circulating pictures of Austin and his twin brother wearing camouflage and holding guns, like going out hunting, juxtaposed with Anthony in a suit, and this very popular guy on X calls him a suspected white supremacist. A suspected white supremacist? No, I mean, honestly, you could get sued for this, sir. Like, you seriously could get sued. And by the way, there are lots of pictures of Carmelo Anthony holding a gun and holding up the middle finger and trying to look like a thug on the internet too. But this is what the prosecutor is going to have to deal with too when he's trying to pick a jury, right? Have you seen these posts suggesting that the decedent is some sort of a white supremacist? It's a lie. Ooh. But it's out there.
You can't say that. You don't want to put it out there. So you have to be more delicate as a prosecutor. What have you seen? And let's go sidebar to discuss it. So that doesn't come out. The minute they hear that he might be a white supremacist, now you've, infected the jury.
Your own jury pool. Yeah. And by the way, I mean, just for the record, even if you were a white supremacist, again, 0, 0, 0 evidence to that effect, that you still can't stick a knife in his heart. You still can't. Like,
right. It would be irrelevant. It wouldn't come out. It's not relevant to the case. I mean, unless someone said he threw out a racial slur or something like that, that would be different. But I would argue as a defense attorney, how is that relevant if he's Catholic, if he's Jewish, if he's a white supremacist, or if he's part of Black Lives Matter? It doesn't matter. That's not part of this case.
Unless you throw white supremacists on the list of being Catholic or Jewish. What?
Well, I mean, none of that stuff comes into the trial.
But I'm just saying it's not like an acceptable religious choice right after Catholicism and Judaism.
Okay, Meg, give me a break. I'm over here. I'm in trial prep. I'm doing the best I can under the circumstances.
I'm very defensive of my Catholic faith right now because my kids are about to be confirmed. So I've been going to the retreats. I'm at my most holy, except for my language.
Well, if you notice Eiglarsh's outfit, he's got the pink and the purple. I mean, he is ready to walk out in the Easter parade here at Fifth Avenue.
He's our own little bunny.
I'm glad that I don't celebrate Easter. The price of eggs are too high, record high.
We just did a fact check on that on the AM update on egg prices for those of you interested. Okay, let's move on. So Bryan Kohberger, this trial's going to go down in August. It's happening for real. And you've got Judge Hippler, Hip, with a P, double P, it's so close. Who is the new judge, and the defense attorney, Ann Taylor, yes, that's her name, is now maneuvering to suggest at trial that there were 2 assailants who killed these 4 Idaho college students within the course of what we believe is 12 to 17 minutes, 22 at the outside, but more like 12 minutes. That 2 men went into that Idaho house that night and killed Kaylee Gonsalves and Maddie Mogan and Ethan Chapin and Xana Kernodle. not Bryan Kohberger, who was a student at University of Washington and a TA, getting his PhD in criminology. Here's a little bit of Ann Taylor talking about the expert witness she's going to put on to that effect, or wants to put on.
Didn't you produce an expert who said that that it would have required two people to commit the crime?
Your Honor, we have produced an expert that believes that it's likely that there were two people, two weapons.
And she goes on to say, we came across a tip that would appear to be an alternate suspect. We're trying to work through that as rapidly as we can. And Judge Hippler said he would set a May deadline for the defense to present evidence of an alternate suspect. So why are they doing that? Why is she showing them? You know, I'm on a Michael Connelly tear right now, reading all of his legal thrillers. The defense, aren't they supposed to surprise the prosecution with something like this? You have to disclose every card you're going to play at trial?
Sometimes you do, Megyn. I mean, something like when it comes to experts, especially when it comes to experts, you have to, in New York, there's a very strict requirement because you play the game of the experts. You got to let them know who your expert is and give them an offer of proof, basically, about what they're going to testify. And then they get to go get their own expert to contradict what your expert is saying. I mean, it usually doesn't hold true for private investigators, but if you're introducing a whole new theory to the case, you may not be obligated under the law to do that, but a judge usually doesn't like to get caught, by surprise. So I don't know if that particular jurisdiction. I can tell you, for an alibi witness, if you're in New York, if you're saying my guy wasn't at the scene, he was in Rhode Island at the time that it took place,
which she is.
A certain amount of time. There's a certain amount of time where you have to say my client was not there and they were elsewhere. Because
she alleged he was out stargazing that night. It was just a lovely night for stargazing, and that was their, quote, alibi. Here's the other point on this case, Mark. The defense moved to bar the prosecution from using the terms psychopath and sociopath before the jurors. They actually also didn't want the prosecution to use the term murderer. The judge left open the possibility that the prosecution could use the word murderer during closing arguments, but I think is still considering on psychopath or sociopath. But what kind of motion is this? Since when can the prosecution not say, he's a murderer? That's what we're all doing here.
Okay, so this is, you have to imagine he's going to be convicted, and then there's going to be always an attack on what the lawyers could have or should have done, and also the lawyers want to win. So there's no harm, and don't take offense, with lawyers filing motions and for the judge to consider it. Calling him a murderer, I would argue, is unfair until and unless closing argument occurs, when they then have proven that he did commit murder. That's number one. The other thing, sociopath, psychopath, any words they want to come up with, if that's not proven, if that hasn't ever been proven as a fact, it would be unfair, one would argue. Jurors would think that if those terms apply to him, it's more likely that he is a murderer. So I know why the defense would not want those things heard. And if there's not evidence to support it, the judge shouldn't let it in.
It's just
I keep thinking, Arthur, of the movie Jagged Edge, right? It was one of the greatest legal thrillers ever. You guys remember that movie? So good. If the listening audience hasn't seen that. With Glenn Close, right, and Jeff Bridges, so good. And in the closing argument, and I won't get into exactly all of it, but in the closing argument, there's that great lawyer, and he said something to the effect of, he's a sociopath. He is an Iceman. And I was like, oh, right. So I think that's how it went down. He might have been saying it out of court. But my point is simply,
Megyn.
Prosecutors make these arguments. I would be happy and fine as a prosecutor, Arthur, saying he's a sociopath. He went into that house and took the lives of 4. Why couldn't you argue that?
Well, first of all, the judge has ruled in this case that it will give them leeway in their closing arguments, but that's prejudicial and conclusory statements by the prosecutor. It's the jury's job to determine whether he's a murderer. Like in the Harvey Weinstein case, I'm objecting to them calling these women victims.
You lost touch with your prosecutor roots, both of you people.
Say it again, I didn't hear you, Megyn.
You got to be able to. I totally disagree. You can argue the same. You can say he is a sociopath. He has no feelings about taking the lives of others.
Megyn, you can't.
Hold on.
Markle, back me up. Markle, back me up. The judge ruled properly here. A prosecutor cannot call a defendant a sociopath. That's almost reversible error.
In a closing argument,
you're testifying.
Megyn, because it's not an opinion. You are to be a sociopath or a psychopath. There has to be proof, meaning someone analyzed him. That wasn't done.
What do you
so
mean?
that's such a prejudicial term.
I really disagree. I think if you can prove that this guy took the lives of 4 college students in 12 minutes single-handedly with a serrated edge knife, and then walked out and went home and took a selfie of himself with his little white shirt on and a thumbs up, it's fair to say he's a murderer. He's a sociopath. Don't let him walk the streets.
Murderer, yes, in closing, once it's been proven that he has no feelings, all the things that you said, except for that term, which there's been no evidence. It's conclusory. There's no expert testimony of that.
Got a couple bleeding
it's the law, Megyn. It's the law. I forget if Mark. I was a prosecutor for 5 years.
I know it's been too long.
As a prosecutor,
you went too native on the defense attorney years. Okay, let's move on.
Megyn,
I actually don't
know.
You're probably right, but I think it's stupid.
We'll try it twice. We'll do it your way, and then the next time when they reverse it, we'll come back and do it our way.
We definitely don't want that. Okay, now this might be my favorite one of the day. The Blake Lively story. This is so interesting to me. So, as the audience knows, there's this death match going on between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, with whom she made the movie It Ends With Us, a film about domestic abuse. She tried to claim that he sexually harassed her on set. He hired my lawyer, Brian Friedman, from my dispute with NBC, and fought back, like, fiercely, saying, I never harassed her a single day. She's a psychopath, and she's made this stuff up. She's making this stuff up because she wanted to wrest control of the movie away from me. And I let her to a large extent, but not to the extent she wanted. And ultimately, she did get control of the movie and then tried to ruin my life. So that's kind of where it is. Cross suits. He sued the New York Times for defamation, too, because they wrote a very sympathetic article about her and what a victim she is. Well, one of her allegations was that, well, let me show you the scene. We cut it. Part of it. It's where her character gives birth in the movie It Ends With Us. Now, let's just watch it first. Listening audience, you can see her belly. She's got the leg spread. He comes in. He's holding her hand. She's acting like a pregnant lady delivering a baby. Except she's smiling, which isn't realistic.
I was going to say she's pretty happy.
He's touching her hand.
That's not how my wife acted.
I was going to say Marion did not look that way, Megyn. Marion did not look that way.
It was my fault. I was getting hit.
Okay, I was called stupid. I was called a very stupid man.
But then I got to perform surgery by cutting the umbilical cord. Like, I've never gone to med school.
Oh, there we go. He's cutting the umbilical cord. Okay, but for about 2 seconds, there's a doctor down, what comedian was it? Johnny Bench, in between the legs, getting ready to catch the baby. Was it Bill Cosby? Who was it who did that bit? Anyway, so her complaint alleges that was one of the moments in which she got harassed because she says she was, here, I'll read you from the lawsuit. On the day of shooting that scene, Mr. Baldoni and his business partner, Mr. Heath, suddenly pressured Ms. Lively to simulate full nudity, despite no mention of nudity for this scene in the script, in her contract, or previous discussions. Claimed that Baldoni insisted that women do give birth naked. I mean, do they? Other than like a water birth? Like, what woman is like, yeah, take it off, take it all off, woo! No, that's not what happens in there. You got your gown, and the gown, they hike it up, but you got a little something on. Okay, anyway. He insisted that women give birth naked, to which she disagreed, but felt forced into a compromise that she would be naked from below the chest. When the birth scene was filmed, the set was chaotic, crowded, she says, and utterly lacking in standard industry protections for filming nude scenes. Baldoni failed to close the set, allowing non-essential crew to pass through, while Miss Lively was partially nude from below the chest down with her legs spread. spread wide in stirrups, and only a small piece of fabric covering her genitalia. Ms. Lively was not provided with anything with which to cover herself between takes until after she had made multiple requests. She became even more alarmed when Baldoni introduced his, quote, best friend to play the role of the OBGYN, claimed typically a small role of this nature would be filled by a local actor. She felt the selection of Baldoni's friend for this intimate role, in which the actor's face and hands were in close proximity to her nearly nude genitals for a birth scene, was invasive and humiliating. However, guys, as you know, because you prepared for today, that actor, Adam Monshine, has now spoken out, and he's got a bone to pick with Blake Lively's description of what happened on that set. Arthur, you want to take it from there?
Well, first of all, the actor, he's the one who's like he's the Shakespearean trained actor. I mean, he basically says that's not what happened. And it was very professional. The scene was very professional. And like nothing was untoward. And it was a big nothing burger. And they're making this.
And she was clothed. He says she was wearing clothing. He said her costume included a full hospital gown, black shorts, and torso-covering prosthetic to make her appear pregnant, in addition to whatever personal garments she chose.
Yeah, so it's not too good when you have the guy who was there saying this is not the truth. And I think a big point, though, he's a legitimate actor. I forget his name, when it begins with an M, who's saying this. Like, he's a legitimate guy, so who doesn't seem to have a horse race.
She is making it sound like, Arthur was the director of this scene and he got his buddy Lawrence Taylor to come by to play the OBGYN. Hey, Blake Lively's going to be naked. Get in here, LT. This is not what happened. This guy has his Bachelor's of Fine Arts in Acting from the University of Maryland. He's got an MFA, Master's of Fine Arts in Acting from UCLA. He worked for several Shakespeare companies, toured nationally with the Tony Award-winning acting company, attended the British American Dramatic Academy's Midsummer in Oxford program as a full scholarship winner. He's been on numerous shows on Netflix, on ABC, on TNT. Once again, Mark, the problem is her allegations in her complaint do not seem to match up with not just what Justin's saying, but with what independent people who have no axe to grind with Blake Lively are saying.
That's the first problem, proving this. And there's always two sides. And so I don't know that she'll be able to prove what's being alleged. But the second thing is there's a difference between what she's alleging, like intentional sexual harassment, and, well, things that in retrospect should have been done differently on the movie set that would have made her more comfortable. That's what all this sounds like, right? And the third thing is jurors always look, and it's legally proper, towards the person bringing the suit and saying, well, what else could you have done? She doesn't seem like a very passive, soft flower. She would have spoken up and saying, I will not do this. I don't want all these people on the set. I don't want this. I don't want that. So they're going to be looking at her as well.
That's the thing. So she makes it sound in this complaint, Arthur, like she is this powerless, shrinking violet. This one I circled in particular. She was not provided with anything with which to cover herself between takes until after she had made multiple requests. Does anyone really believe Blake Lively, who had 100 times the star power and regular power of anybody on that set, was sitting there naked going, somebody please get me a cover, multiple requests, get me a cover, and everyone just blew her off like, screw her.
Of course not. It does not sound reasonable at all. Also, she says, it doesn't say in my contract anything about nudity, but my understanding is it did say there was a childbirth scene, and there is some degree of nudity in any kind of childbirth. Right. They're just going to do it from the neck up.
They don't come out of your nose.
No, not that I know of.
It's pretty clear. Well, look, I'm looking at that birth scene. I can't see what's there. And that's obvious. The filmmakers don't want you to see if she's wearing a pair of black shorts. It kind of suspends disbelief on the giving birth claims. But in any event, I want to go on just for another minute about what Adam Monshine is alleging. He played Dr. Dunbar in that scene. He says, my experience working with her is very different than the one she described in her lawsuit. Indeed, I was surprised to read her description of the scene. He goes on about the costume, as I read before. Then he further alleged that Lively never complained or expressed discomfort at any point because nothing unusual or improper occurred. It was extremely professional. And of course, he was there for all of it because he was playing the OB right between the legs. He called Lively's insinuations about his acting qualifications offensive, as his bona fides are easily searchable online, and says, by the way, I was actually a local hire. My wife and I are from New York, and we spend significant time there, and apparently that's where the scene was shot, and said if I'm called to testify in this case, I will answer truthfully. And he says, in particular, I will note that Ms. Lively was not, quote, nearly nude in the scene we shot together. So here's the takeaway. You tell me what you think. This is how Brian Friedman and Justin Baldoni are going to win this case. You don't have to take all 20 of her allegations. Pick your top 4, right? And show. You don't have to take Baldoni's word on the birth scene. Listen to Adam Monshine, who is telling you he was there. And by the way, here are the raw film outtakes from the whole thing, where you can see she is wearing black shorts. She does not have just a thin piece of fabric separating her genitalia from everybody there. And let's sit and listen to her alleged multiple requests for a cover, which everyone blew her. I bet it's not going to be there. So how powerful a piece of evidence is this for an effective trial lawyer, guys?
Huge, Megyn. Arthur and I, who are artists in creating reasonable doubt, will tell the jury that if there's reasonable doubt created as to one allegation, while we might not be able to disprove the others, it shows what's going on here, that the person was caught in a lie. They're willing to manufacture allegations, at least as it relates to some things. And so you can disregard her entire testimony. So yes, I think this is colossal.
It's not even, Mark and I are criminal guys, so it's not even reasonable doubt under these circumstances. It's even a lesser standard. But, you also, Megyn, have to think about the lawyering here. When she's going to make this claim, you have to tell your client, okay, I heard what you said. There's going to be there were 12 other people in the room, or according to you, even more. And they're going to know, they're going to be witnesses as well. They're going to support the fact that you didn't have, you were naked, right? No one's going to say you had shorts on, right? And they're all going to support the fact that you asked to be covered up and nobody helped you, correct? You got to, now maybe the lawyer did, and she's like, oh, absolutely, I didn't have anything on it.
And maybe the film will show that. In her defense, maybe the film will show that, and this guy will be proven wrong. Keep going.
The bottom line is, when you're on the plaintiff's side, before you make these claims, you better do some homework and some of your own investigation work, because as the lawyer, your reputation is on the line. You're the one who signs that complaint and says, I'm submitting these papers. And it sounds like from this witness, who sounds like a very credible guy here, that, that she either lied to her lawyer or her lawyer didn't do her homework.
He sounds like somebody the jury's going to like. That's my gut instinct. And they're not going to like that she smeared him as just a best friend who was trying to get a look at her vag. Last but not least, this woman, Christina Formella, 30 years old, Illinois teacher accused of molesting a 15-year-old student who was on a soccer team she coached and whom she tutored. Allegedly happened in a Downers Grove high school classroom in December 2023. At the time, she was 28. He was 15. And they had a sexual interlude. There may have been more than one. I don't know. There are text messages in which she texts him, I love you so much, baby. Even though this morning was short, it was perfect. And she wrote directly to him, I love having sex with you. Now she's claiming he wrote those texts on her phone, which he stole from her, and then he deleted the record on her phone so she wouldn't see that he had done this. She's in a lot of trouble out in Illinois right now, and you tell me how this case is likely to get resolved.
Go ahead, Mark. Because, the heart wants what the heart wants, even if they are, even if
God.
15.
Arthur, she's going to prison. They've got enough evidence. The things that she's alleging on the defense are not supported by the evidence, including the things that she claimed that her husband knew. She is going to get what she deserves.
And it appears, if I read this correctly, that eventually she fessed up to some piece of this. I got to find out where is that? She fessed up to some piece of this. Where is it? I can't find it.
Because it's in black and white. She can't deny these things, you know?
Yeah, okay.
Too much evidence.
It says, okay, she fessed up to having, Formella later fessed up to having a relationship with the boy, prosecutors say. Quote, defendant admitted she knew the relationship was wrong, but she was unable to stop it because she cares too much about him. And in another tape, she says she was just too hot. And that's why people say things about her that aren't
As they said,
nice.
the heart wants what the heart wants.
This is Arthur's defense to everything. I was too hot.
Arthur,
people like to attack me.
Megyn, here's my defense. Ladies and gentlemen, the casting couch is not a crime scene.
Okay.
Really, that's it?
I mean, I'm open-minded. I want to hear where that goes, and maybe I will in court next week. Thank you, guys. Good luck, Arthur.
Thank you so much. Be good.
Good luck,
Mark.
Artie. Take care. Bye,
Sort
Meg.
of good luck. May the best witness win. Okay, up next, Tim Dillon. What are you doing this Easter to celebrate with your family? Angel Studios, who gave us the box office hit Sound of Freedom, has an unforgettable movie coming out this Easter called The King of Kings, an animated story of the life of Jesus, featuring an all-star cast including Oscar Isaac, Pierce Brosnan, Uma Thurman, Forrest Whitaker, and more. Using stunning animation with vivid theatrical scenes you've never seen in a movie like this, King of Kings brings the story of Jesus to the big screen for a whole new generation. And I have a special offer. Become a premium member in the Angel Studios Guild, a membership that puts you in the driver's seat to help Angel choose which movies it greenlights. And you will get two free tickets to see King of Kings and every single theatrical release from Angel Studios as well. How about that? Get 2 free tickets to see King of Kings and join the Angel Guild as a premium member at angel.com/Megyn. Take your kids to a truly wonderful movie this Easter season and be a part of making family entertainment great again. Angel.com/Megyn. It's Friday, so we're going to have some fun. I'm super excited because a guest that we had on way back in 2021, it was, I think, January 2021, really Jan or Feb, on episode 60, number 60, here we're over 1,000 now, is here in person, comedian Tim Dillon. Tim has a new Netflix special out next week called I'm Your Mother. And it is hilarious. Here's a look.
It's so funny what we fight about in America. We're going to ban TikTok or we're not. I don't know. I don't care how you feel about that. At a certain age, you got to shut up. Like, I'm 39 years old, and I have friends that are still, they're like, they can't ban TikTok. I'm like, hey, Ralph, sit down. Sit this out. They can't ban that child's dancing app. Ralph. This looks terrible. Please. Stop. Where am I going to watch children dance? All right. Hey, enough.
You're not helping Ralph. Tim, great to see you again.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Awesome. I was just saying, like, so when we first talked, it was like the height of the pandemic nonsense. Everything was still locked down.
Yeah.
And I remember one of the things we discussed was how comedians are being canceled left and right.
Yeah, it was a weird time. People were very uptight and people were very, tense. And there was a lot of anger and a lot of it was coming for comedy. A lot of it was pointed in that direction. I feel like now it's dissipated. People are more relaxed. I think, not in every facet of life, but certainly with comedy, people are relaxing and common sense is coming back, and I think people are having more fun.
How do we get there? How did we finally get to the point where we took our boot off the necks of the comedians?
I think it was just, people, I think, realized that they were being silly. I think what happened was people were being a bit ridiculous. They were going overboard. I think it tends to happen. I think we're in like a little bit of a moral panic where people were trying to assert at every moment how good they were. And I think people just got tired of that. I think it's exhausting. Mm-hmm. I think not having fun is actually very tiring. Being a stickler is very tiring. It's very exhausting. And I think people just got to a point when, they realized that that was not only a terrible way to live, but it's also not effective. The world that they want isn't going to be manifested through scolding people. So I think they realized that.
I hope you're right.
Yeah.
I hope we're done with that period
I hope so, too.
forevermore.
Yeah.
So it's funny because we didn't do a ton of your bio, a little bit last
Yeah.
time that you came on, but I didn't remember that you were, you're
Yeah.
going to love this, in my packet that my
Yeah.
team gave me.
You do the best interview, and I don't even want to say this just because I'm here, but like you have the best people. You research, you know things.
Thank you.
Most people, you go to their interview and they go, "So now you're a comedian." Like
So
no
what do you
one
do?
has a clue.
Well,
Yeah.
you'll love this.
Yeah,
Unsuccessful child actor.
unsuccessful, failed,
That's not nice.
failed.
Why? Wait.
Well, it didn't work.
No, they pulled clips of you. Here you are on Sesame Street. Let's
Yeah.
watch it. Speaking of
You sure?
dancing children. Now,
By the
let's
way,
watch.
that doesn't pay.
Okay, you're the
Public television.
blonde boy in
And we're
blue
getting
shirt.
rid of it, and I'm happy.
Wait, here he is with Mr. Cephalophagus.
That's right.
Wait, let's watch.
There's an empty
There- oh, that's you in the back.
Yeah.
You might think it's not for you. That's simply
I believe Doge has just cut the funding for this, which I think is probably reasonable.
You stole the scene. I don't understand.
Yeah.
I barely look at Snuffleupagus.
It was a big deal when you're a little kid to do it.
Totally.
It was like,
how did
you
this
got
not
out of
turn into a Tom
school.
Cruise-like
It
career?
didn't turn into anything. That was the height of it.
What happened?
Public television was the height of it.
no.
I wasn't good.
What? Wait
You
a
know,
minute.
I mean, I think that's the problem.
We have one more. I'm gonna
Okay.
put it to the test. This is
Sure.
you on Comedy Central on a
Okay.
skit.
Yeah.
Just say no, Jay.
Just say no, Jay. Yeah,
In the
O.J. Simpson
1990s.
trial, yeah.
Was after the murders.
It was after the murders. Comedy Central had this campaign where they were trying to get people to stop watching the trial and start watching Comedy Central.
Okay.
So they had this Just Say No, Jay campaign, and it satirized how insane people had become with the trial.
Yeah, yes.
And I think I play a young kid playing like a DNA testing kit.
Let's see
Yeah.
this. Picture Marcia Clark's
Now
book.
severed down.
Mom and a dog.
Hey,
Here you are. There's the blonde hair.
Yeah.
Careful, Trevor.
I love that you found this. This was the height of it.
Was it after
He's
that
the
point that he
dad.
told
Yeah.
you to take the next flight?
The dog shuts off the TV.
And you then
Just say no, Jay, from
Still
Comedy
going.
Central.
Yep.
That was it?
That was it.
Just
This
that
is
little-
the height of my career.
2 seconds.
This is the height of my career. Nothing except that. Years of auditioning, going into the city, nothing.
Nothing?
That was it.
That's really
The
sad.
2 things you just played were it.
We didn't
They
leave any
were
gold
it.
out there.
And you know the saddest thing? We'd have holiday parties. We're Irish. We'd have big family parties. And we'd play that. We'd play that. So the
Very
whole,
proud.
I mean, everybody would be there.
So
Everybody
sweet.
would be like, oh, he did something? Let's see it.
Yeah, your mom's like, let me show you Timmy.
That. And then it's just a bunch of drunk, red-faced Irish people watching me dance with Snuffleupagus going,
Okay. Well, Irish
Yeah.
people are brutally honest.
They're
too, so
brutally honest.
Unfortunately, I'm sure
Yeah.
you really got it.
yeah.
So that may have led to chapter 2, which my team describes as discovered cocaine and alcohol at
Yeah.
13. Discovered it.
Discovered it, developed a relationship with it, which
How
was
sounds.
yeah, discovered. I like that. Discover. By the way, it's the nicest way I've ever heard it described. Discovered it. Yeah, I mean, I was a wild kid, and I had
Is
a
it
lot
because of your child acting?
It was probably because of that. Also because my parents were kind of, I loved them both. They were just boomers, and they were a little checked out. Parenting was a little different back then.
Very.
It was not as intense as it is now. There was no tracker on a phone that knew where I was. You would go to the park. You would ride your bike. You would leave. And I had a lot of older friends, and they were into drugs. And I got into it through them. And, you know, it was a little bit of a wild ride for about 10 years.
Oh, really?
About 10 years. And now 15 years sober of all things.
So nothing. You don't drink.
Nothing.
You don't do anything.
Nothing.
So it's kind of a blessing.
It's a good thing to get out of your system young. I mean, not that young. That
But
was
like when you can
yeah.
still save your liver, you know, it's
Yeah.
like if you stop drinking at 25 or whatever.
Yeah, I stopped drinking
You're
at
good.
25, and you know, but it was a time where I learned a lot about life, doing all that stuff. I wouldn't recommend it.
No,
There's
no.
other ways to learn about life. If you're watching this, you know, take a class or something.
Gonna put Junior on the Tim Dillon plan.
Yeah, read a book. But I learned a lot about life doing that. You learn a lot about accountability, being an addict. You learn a lot about not blaming other people for your problems.
You learn that when you come out of the addiction.
You learn it when you come out of it.
Yeah.
You learn it when you come out of it, which was a great lesson.
Well, I was sort of laughing at first, thinking it couldn't have been his short stint as a child actor. But it turns out that your mom has a serious mental illness.
Yes.
And I'm sure that was stressful to grow up with.
Well, she was a schizophrenic, and that was hard. It became more obvious when I was older, and it was difficult because when you're younger, you're not. You look at your parents and your mother as a authority figure, who's like who's maybe wise or certainly integral to your growing up, and then realizing that she's a very fallible person with problems is a hard thing to realize, and then realizing you can't do anything about it. You can't really do anything about it. You have to accept it, be the best you can be, and live with it and deal with it. So, I mean, I think that was something too that was difficult.
Did you experience her while she was having delusions?
Yeah, I mean, so an Irish Catholic family, we weren't big on the term schizophrenic. We were, for a while there, we just thought she was eccentric or fun.
Right.
Patty's fun.
Right.
She would say something, she'd go, I think your uncle is like a CIA agent or something. And we'd all go, she's a hoot. She's fun. And then we started realizing, it's a mental disorder.
So it was manageable. It wasn't like...
It was manageable. She worked very hard. She really, really worked. And then I think around in her 40s, it started to progress and get worse.
So how do you parlay that into comedy? Or is that just more the Irish Catholic strain?
I think you parlay it into something creative. Doesn't have to be comedy, but for me, it was there was a lot of stuff that in order to deal with it, you could be funny about it. That's the way to deal with a lot of
coping
things.
mechanism.
Yeah, it's a coping mechanism. There's a lot of people that have had mental illness in their family. They write great novels about it, or they're, a playwright, or they're a musician or something. But for me, comedy made sense because it was a way to kind of goof about things that were, incredibly painful.
Yep.
And you couldn't understand. She didn't really understand it. I think that's a big thing in comedy, trying to make sense of things in a funny way.
So another friend of mine who was a child actor for reals, she started on Little House on the Prairie.
Oh, well, wow.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
I feel like she would have advocated for you.
Yeah, where's she now? And I'm kidding, probably very well.
She's doing very well. But
she's doing very well.
But she wrote a book called Diary of a Stage Mother's Daughter.
Wow.
And talked about her mother was just totally overbearing and definitely had some mental issues.
Sure.
And she writes about this in the book, but she's always worried as she gets more mature, am I going to have any of those issues? And she's not.
Yeah.
But it seems like a natural worry. So how do you deal with that?
Well, I do a podcast, so if I become a schizophrenic, I make more money. So I have a career.
Everyone would listen to that.
No one would know. In fact, it would be multiple years before anyone suggested something was off. In fact, people go, it's getting really good. So I have a career where if I were to become a schizophrenic, people go, it's actually getting really good. So I'm not as worried about that as I would be if I was like a lawyer or something where it would become more apparent.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I hear we have something in common, and that is our mutual love for Meghan Markle.
Yes.
I hear you're ready to endorse her for president.
I like her now. I've come around on her because since I'm a little kid, love con artists. I think they're great. I think they're fun. They're an important part of America and the tapestry of our country. They, to me, exude a kind of effortless humor. They're very funny. And I find her to be a great con artist, one of the great cons of our time. One of the greats, This is someone who came to prominence marrying into the royal family, claiming they were racist, claiming she wanted to dedicate herself to uplifting young women around the world, and is now selling jam at Target.
Yes.
That's beautiful. She moved to the richest and whitest area of our country, Montecito.
Absolutely.
And makes honey. There's nothing better than that from where she started to where she is now. And that's what I think a lot of it is. I think a lot of people that claim to be really evolved people who really want to help other people are just trying. She just wants a line of consumer goods.
Yeah.
That's all she wants.
We actually
and give it to her.
We just looked this up. So there was a soundbite of her saying she really wanted her merch that she's selling to be prestige.
Yes.
Not prestigious. She wanted it to be prestige.
Yeah.
But at like a price point everyone can afford.
Yeah.
So we looked it up. She's got a raspberry spread under the As Ever label.
Love
raspberry spread. You can get it for $14, or you can get it at Walmart under the Smucker's label for $3.47.
Right.
Herbal lemon ginger tea, As Ever, will charge you $12, or you can get it from Yogi for $4.46. Shortbread cookie mix, As Ever, will charge you $14. My Better Batch, which is high end, $7.99.
Right.
Then there's Wildflower Honey with honeycomb, As Ever, $28.
Yeah.
Amazon, $11.
Right.
And then there's Crepe Mix, which you can get from her for $14, or you can get it from New Hope Mills for $5.
Yep.
So you tell me whether this person has actually landed the plane.
Right.
On prestige, but totally affordable.
Well, what's brilliant about what she's doing is she knows people want to spend money, and spending money makes them feel like they're getting something that's better, even though it might not necessarily be true.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's brilliant. You can tell when you watch the show, she thinks people we're all animals.
Yeah.
And that's her view. She just thinks we're all monsters and we're all just kind of pigs in the mud, and that she's helping us with jam and honey. It's also very weirdly British, isn't it?
Yeah, well, her little flower sprinkles,
isn't it
her garden.
It's kind of oddly British for somebody who went over there and realized it was just a racist, horrible place. There's a lot of jam and tea and honey.
And why is she using all the royal crown on her stationery? I thought she hated being a royal. I thought she wanted to eschew the royal life and come back to America.
Well, it seems it's just very interesting, and seeing it all happen in real time fills me with it fills me with I recognize how much this was the plan the whole time, and you got to give your hats off to her.
It's hard to enhance your brand that quickly. Get your name out there in a ubiquitous way.
No one needs honey. Right now.
No
one needs jam. There's not one systemic racist problem that no one needs jam. There's not one person wrongly accused of something or whatever, doesn't have money for a lawyer, that's looking for elderberries or wildflowers or whatever the hell she's talking about. The only people that are concerned with this stuff are people like, she lives in an area in Montecito that's so wealthy, they're not even on Earth anymore.
No.
And it's a beautiful area. It's a great area. But they float around and they have tea and they pick flowers.
Yeah.
They live in a fairy tale.
She makes sun tea, Tim.
Yeah,
she makes sun tea.
And
we all have time to do.
Yeah, they kind of sit around in their backyards and they enjoy this and they smell lavender and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
it's not how you're living in LA right now?
It's not how we're living. No, we're sitting by our doors with guns.
Like normal people.
Yeah, we're sitting by the door with a gun waiting for someone to come in. That's how we're living.
And check the sun tea.
Yeah. No one's making honey. If you have honey in your house, you're using it as a weapon.
You don't have a local beekeeper?
No, there's no local beekeeper. There's no gardens. They've all
down
burned.
On the job. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I have a treat for you because in addition to her new Netflix show, she has launched yet another podcast.
Thank God.
This one is about...
Thank God.
Yes, this one is about founders. How does she style it?
Is it all female founders?
Yes.
Please,
I think it's all female founders.
Is it female founders? Female founders, right?
Confessions of a female founder.
Thank God. What are they thinking about, these female founders?
Oh, here you go.
What are they doing?
She starts with herself because she now considers herself a founder.
And it's hard to find. When you are married to a prince, how do you start a business? That's a real question because the struggle she had to go through being married to a prince and being one of the most famous people in the world. How do you start a business when you're rich and famous?
Your castle's too small.
It's hard.
Your grandmother, your spouse's grandmother doesn't seem to really like you and then dies.
Yeah.
I mean, your one greatest connection is now out.
Thank God, because I want to know how this all happened, and I want to get into the mind of the female founder.
Here we go. Here's this founder discussing, I think...
Remember when she pretended to like poor people? That lasted a few weeks.
I don't. Sex workers, I remember that with her inspo messages on the bananas.
Right.
Here she is on her new podcast.
Let's be honest. Launching a business, it can be so overwhelming. Even with the best of teams, it'll keep you up at night. For example, a month ago, I was absolutely consumed with packaging. Boxes. That's all I could think about. And I would sit there doing the unboxing in my head. Is there tissue paper? What about the packing peanuts? But they're biodegradable. And where does the sticker go? And hold on, and what size the box is going to be? And no, that's not going to fit all the SKUs. Oh my gosh. And then someone says, but you don't want to brand the outside of the box because of porch pirates. Had never heard that before. What's a porch pirate? And then I'm sitting there and I'm like, does any of this actually matter? Of course it matters. It matters at the beginning, but how much does it matter?
Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, it's well, she's also she's kept up at night because she's half the staff quit.
That's right.
They quit
on any given day.
On any given day, the staff will quit because she just launches into a tirade. And for whatever reason, they feel unsafe.
She's been accused multiple times of being a bullying abuser.
Well, she's throwing honey at people's heads and stuff. So she's kept up at night wondering about what lawsuits will trickle in because of the abusive behavior towards the staff.
Like that, didn't that soundbite just hit so many of the leftist boxes? Like, are they biodegradable?
Yes.
And what does the packaging look like?
Well, what I like about her, I've gone the other way now because now that she's coming out as a monster... I'm actually on board now because I'm into it because now, by the way, there's no longer even an attempt. It's such a thinly veiled attempt to be this conscientious person who, she's really just saying like, I'm a founder.
Yeah.
I'm a founder and I'm a big business tycoon, and it's tough for me.
Can I tell you, she's not the only extremely rich woman who, in her case, it's questionable, but in a lot of these other women's cases, their husbands are multimillionaires or billionaires.
Yes.
And then the women like open a charity or like give their money to somebody. And then they're like, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur. It's like, okay.
I'm a founder.
Look, I appreciate
I've connected people with jam.
Right. Like,
yeah.
I see that your husband made billions of dollars.
Right.
But the fact that you spent some of it doesn't make you a founder.
Well, it's also she never cared. It was all about, in the beginning, it was all about like unwinding the systems of oppression.
Yeah.
Remember that?
That's done, didn't you know?
Remember that?
She solved that.
Remember that? It was like she would go to like a third world country and there'd be a bunch of kids dancing and she'd take a photo with them. Now it seems much more about like she's looking at like Gwyneth Paltrow, what Gwyneth Paltrow did with her store.
Yes.
Goop or whatever it's called. I think it's Goop.
Goop.
Yeah, and I think she's looking at that and going, that's what she wants to be. She wants to be Martha Stewart.
Yeah. Although what I found out after the fact was she launched her show with showing you how to make this one recipe. It's like one pot pasta. You make it on the stove. And then everybody flooded Twitter with the fact that apparently is a Martha Stewart recipe.
Sure.
That's apparently very well known in Martha Stewart land.
Yeah.
So even the inaugural episode is cheating off of somebody else's
Well, I mean, you
recipes.
got to hand it to her. She knows that we don't have a memory.
Yes,
the country doesn't have a memory. We have a fatally short memory. And we're kind of tolerant of however people want to reintroduce themselves in the moment.
Yes.
So she understands America.
I didn't know.
Better than I do, or maybe you do, because she gets it. We love the huckster. We root for the huckster.
Yes.
We root for kind of the criminal sometimes. And she's kind of assuming that role of going, this is who I am today.
Right. Yeah, I found my wave. I'm going to ride it.
I found my wave.
Now, speaking of not having a memory.
Yeah.
Gavin Newsom is out there.
He's out there.
And you've got some thoughts about him.
Yeah.
Hold on. We have a clip that I want to show. This is from your show, not the special, but
the
here's a bit.
podcast.
Yeah, the podcast from March 36.
Clearly copying me. I had Steve Bannon on. He had Steve Bannon on. He's literally copying me. The governor of California, Gavin Newsom. Now, by the way, this is not what politicians should be doing, is starting podcasts. No one wanted this. No one who's sitting in an ash heap in Altadena wants him on a podcast. They want him to run the state. You have a job. You have a job. It's the governor of California. That's a hard job, right? He keeps saying it is. The state's very big. It's the 7th largest economy in the world, or whatever he's saying. How in God's name do you have the time to do a podcast? Can you imagine launching a podcast in the ash heap of your state? He's now doing is he going to have ads? Is he going to read ads? Is Gavin Newsom going to read ads while people try to find housing in his state?
It's such a good point.
Yeah.
He's totally copying you.
Well, you know what it is? Watching him try and fail to be a human being is a very interesting thing. And that's what he's been kind of doing. You know, Gavin is a ambitious guy who thought he was going to run for president last time.
Yep.
It's clearly obvious to everybody. How many times did he say, I'm standing with Biden? He said it so many times. It was like the lady doth protest too much.
Yep.
He clearly thought he was angling for that. He got passed over, okay, for a unpopular candidate who got trounced. He thinks he's coming back again. And he's trying everything he can to appear like a human being. When you're so ambitious, Markle, Newsom, it's the same type of person. They just want the thing, whatever it is. They want the title. They want the status. They don't believe in anything. Gavin Newsom doesn't believe in it. Meghan Markle doesn't believe in anything. So when you have people like that, their guiding principle is only ambition. Kamala Harris didn't believe in anything.
No.
Say what you want about Donald Trump. He said the same thing about tariffs for 30, 40 years.
Yes.
Okay? People like Kamala Harris or Gavin Newsom just want the thing. It's a vibes-based thing. They want people to feel a certain way, and they want to make people feel a certain way.
So when you saw him say to Charlie Kirk, it's just, for me, it's a fairness issue about boys playing in girls' sports.
Yeah.
You know, claiming that they're girls. It's a fairness issue. You know, I
Right.
got daughters.
Right.
And then just this week, somebody asked him about it because they tried to push through a bill out in California to, protect, and it didn't go anywhere. They didn't protect girls.
No.
And he's like, I just can't figure it out. I tried to think about how to make it more fair.
Yeah.
I just can't figure it out.
He goes, I just want to be president. That's all he wants to do.
It's really what he's saying.
It's really what he wants to do. He doesn't have a specific set of beliefs. He doesn't care. It doesn't mean anything to him.
So he'll pander to anybody?
Anybody.
Like he'll, if he were across from Donald Trump, you think he'd pander?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because the way that people like Gavin Newsom get far, the way that people like Kamala Harris get far, and there's a lot of Republicans, by the way, who get far the same way, is they don't have a fixed set of principles. Because if you have a fixed set of principles, Bernie Sanders, whatever you want to say about him, has a fixed set of principles. You know, for the most part, he's been saying a lot of the same things for 30 years.
Yeah.
Now, that means that eventually someone comes around to you or you're out there in the cold. Now, Gavin and Kamala, people like that, they don't ever want to be out in the cold. They constantly want to be in the rooms that matter. So you have to go with the flow. When the world goes a certain way, you got to go with the world. So when Americans render a verdict on the biological men in women's sports and say, we don't want this, Gavin Newsom then has to move in that direction. But when he's in his own state, and he's asked about it, and the time is to do something about it, he's constantly monitoring and going, is this the right thing to say here? Is this the right thing to say there? So
he can have it all.
He can try, but
he's definitely trying.
His popularity is plummeting. That doesn't work anymore. That's my, I guess, thought about it. The way that politics has worked forever, which was Gavin Newsom's, Kamala Harris, it's been people
say whatever the hell you have to.
Say whatever the hell you have to. Lindsey Graham is like a lot of times says whatever he has to.
Lindsey Graham's everywhere.
Right? He's everywhere. These people don't care about anything. That's not working anymore because of the internet. You're able to immediately go, wait a minute. You said that last week. Where are you on this now?
You're just a phony.
You're a phony, and you put together these compilations of people just being for it and against it and this and that. It doesn't work anymore. And I think that's a major change.
So one person who is the opposite of that, he's completely authentic in his weirdness, his greatness, his brilliance, is Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
He's 100%. He feels the way he feels. Agree or disagree.
Yeah.
He's 100% been saying the same things for 30 years.
Even the picadillos, even like, we cut off the head of a bear and or like whatever.
Right.
And also a whale.
Right.
Yeah. It was a thing.
Right.
And I used to be addicted to heroin.
Right. Right.
Like he's not trying to impress you or downplay anything he's done.
No.
And so I know that you became his fan and his friend.
Yes, I'm friends with him. I like
got
his
to know about
family.
this.
He's a good dude.
Have you done social things with him?
Yeah, him and his wife are great. Cheryl's great.
So
He's great.
what have you guys done together? How does that go?
We've gone to dinner a few times. I went to their compound on the 4th of July, which was really cool to
Very
see. It's a
nice.
big part of American history.
The Kennedy compound?
Yeah.
The
legit-
compound?
Yeah, for an Irish Catholic guy, that's a pretty good.
Did anybody die, or it was good? It was fine.
I mean, no one died, thankfully.
Excellent.
But they do dangerous activities. It's not like you can see how it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can
It's
see
in the
it.
blood.
They're adrenaline junkies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're
Yep.
they're very much.
Did you meet Schlossberg, the
No.
grandson of JFK? Because he seems
No.
to be a little.
They seem to be on
untethered.
opposite sides of
Yeah,
the thing.
don't worry about
that.
Okay. No, they seem very opposite.
Yeah, no-
So he was there, and the whole family was there because he's persona non grata.
He was not there. I actually went with his kids. He wasn't there. Him and Cheryl weren't there that weekend. They were somewhere else, but they could have been there. I think that, listen, it's a family. They disagree about stuff. It's a high stakes family. They disagree about a lot of stuff, and it's very public.
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, it is a family, and it's a important family in terms of the history of America.
So when you have, as I don't know him like that, I've supported him, but I don't know him personally like that. So when you have dinner with RFKJ, does he always talk policy and history?
He talks a lot about that stuff, and he's very, very passionate about it. And again, you don't get the vibe that this is someone angling to be famous.
Yeah.
That's
he
not
has
why
genuinely held
That's
beliefs.
not why he went after polluters forever when that was incredibly unpopular. That's not why he talked about vaccines during the pandemic when that was incredibly unpopular.
Right.
He feels the way he feels, and I think that the only way to get out of the climate we're in America, in the sense of we need people who have genuine convictions. And they can debate about them and they can argue about them, but we need people with genuine convictions. And he has genuine convictions.
How do you think Cheryl is surviving in the Hollywood crowd?
I think she's an incredibly funny, smart, talented person who's respected in her own right as a great actress, great comedic actress.
Yeah.
And I think she has real friends and real relationships. And I think that's also changing. A lot of people in that state and in that business are also starting to moderate a little bit, because I think they're starting to see that, they have drifted far from the mainstream of American life.
Yep.
And I think they're starting to come back.
And what he's saying is Maha is basically, let's try to help make the country safer, the kids healthier, the moms and dads healthier.
Yeah.
He just said, this is in our AM update today, he wants to find a cure or the cause of autism by September.
Yeah.
It feels like a moonshot, right? It's like we've been trying
who would
be against that?
Yeah, I think the problem with everything now is that people have a visceral reaction to certain people, meaning for whatever reason, there are certain people, like Steve Bannon on my show. I had liberals calling me going, "Oh my God, I agree with Steve Bannon."
Yes.
And they go,
that's what happens when you start listening to Steve Bannon.
And you go, wow, this guy made a lot of great points. But there are certain people who said, I cannot believe you. I will never listen. This guy's a white supremacist. He's a Nazi. And I go, he's none of that.
Yeah.
Listen to the episode. So there's people that I think are not listening. And there are people that disagree with RFK too. And that's fine. There's people that have principled disagreements with RFK and go, I think you're wrong.
But there's so many people on the left who are like, I'm against you. Team Trump, it's a no.
Sure.
And so I just wonder, she's probably surviving because she's married to Bobby and not Donald, that.
Yeah.
Trump,
I think she's
RFK
also,
could be your gateway drug, but Trump is the real deal.
Also, listen, your real friends become apparent in these situations, and I'm sure she knows who they are.
Yeah. Well, in Hollywood, it's always hard, isn't it?
It's tough.
What you were saying about people have very strong feelings about people. My husband saw some article, I don't know if it got fed to him, and it was about the height of our children. Somebody did an article online about the height of our children.
Yeah.
It was all messed up. It had all sort of fake facts about my kids. We don't show our kids on the air.
Of course.
Or on the internet at all. But in any event, so he forwarded it, and we were looking at it. It was kind of funny, speculating about the height and how they get so tall. Like we gave him HGH, which we didn't. They have a tall father.
It's hilarious.
And there was a line in there saying, Megyn Kelly, who many people can't stand. And then it Wow, that seemed unnecessary.
Yeah.
For an article about the children's height.
Yeah.
Wow, that was kind of below the belt.
Hilarious.
But it comes with the territory.
Yeah, of course.
But certainly if you're a lightning rod in the media, in politics, you know, you got to be able to take it. And so I think Cheryl went from a life of being pretty much beloved by everybody. She wasn't controversial to,
I think she disagrees with some of his stuff, right? I don't think they agree
I'm sure
on
she does.
everything. I think like everybody else, nobody agrees with everybody on everything. I think it's fine to have a position where you go, I think RFK is right here and wrong here.
Yeah.
That's how most people feel about most people.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that's totally okay. I think when you go, he's a crackpot, he's a crank, he's completely insane, and you dismiss everything he says, even though you agree with some of it. Like, I don't disagree with everything Meghan Markle says. I like jam. So I think, everybody has to, I think you take it issue by
That's
issue.
how I felt. There are some things I agree with Joe Biden on, believe
That's
it or
right,
not.
of course.
Like chocolate chip ice cream is the best.
Yes, 1,000%.
Feel the same.
1,000%.
Wasn't wrong about everything.
The withdrawal from Afghanistan was sloppy and a mess. I agreed it was time to go, not in that way. So I said, we shouldn't be there. Good for him. The withdrawal was a mess.
Yeah.
But the instinct of getting our troops out of a 20-year thing,
I gave him very little credit for that, I have to be honest, because that was Trump's idea. Trump was the one who sold it to
Trump
the American
should have done
people.
it. And I think maybe this Trump would have done it. But I think last time he didn't do it.
How do you like Trump? Are you a Trump supporter?
I think that there's things I really like about him, and there's things that I find a little bit, I'm not as in love with.
He's controversial.
Well, yeah, I'm not as in love with all of the things, but I think he understands a lot of the problems. And I think that, it depends on, I don't want to go to war with Iran.
Yep.
This is the thing that I disagree with. I think there's a ratcheting up of this, it feels like.
I remember the last time we spoke, you said something like, somehow they reeled me into we're just talking politics. And next thing I know, I'm giving my opinion on whether we should be in Iraq. Like, what am I doing?
Yeah, no, I remember that. Yeah. I really like his idea of no wars.
Yeah.
Having a border, trying to restore fairness in an economy, trying to get a middle class back. If he goes down those roads, I think he'll have a great presidency. If he gets bogged down with a conflict in Iran, and kind of, a domestic agenda that is a little chaotic, whereas
the tariffs?
it's streamlined. I think the tariffs I think it's the right instinct. I'm not an economist, but I do think the right we're what, 37 trillion in the hole?
Oh wait, we have this. You can went viral in this clip. This is you speaking to some of this on your show from April 5th. Here's 34.
Charlie takes a big buyout, okay? Because a multinational corporation
Charlie
like
Bucket.
Unilever buys the chocolate factory and they move all of the jobs offshore. He didn't even like chocolate. He just liked going to orgies on a yacht in international waters. He comes back, he wipes the blood off himself from just throwing a woman over a boat. And they said, Charlie, why did you sell the factory? Why are all the Oompa Loompas on fentanyl? And Charlie says, it's a shame how trans people are treated in this country. And they go, what? And it almost feels like Charlie himself is using some of this to get people's mind off the fact that he sold his chocolate factory to a global multinational conglomerate who's offshored all of the jobs. Now we say to the Oompa Loompas, I hope you got your Bitcoin. No. I'm trying to make the chocolate bar. Oh, we don't do that here anymore. Go work at Panera. So that's what America is. It's an Oompa Loompa at Panera.
Yeah, I think that the American working class has been thrown aside by both parties.
Yeah.
And I think that people in this country that are fortunate can't fully understand the desperation in a lot of parts of the country that have been ignored. And I think a lot of that has to do with the deindustrialization of the country. Now, there's going to be periods of adjustment. There's going to be ugliness. There's going to be, but I think the country's more than an economic zone. I don't think you could see it as just a place to make money. I think you have to see it as a place where, You have a culture. A country is something where you have to go to war to protect, right? I don't think people can just see it as a place where there are financial opportunities.
Yeah, we got a roaring market.
Yeah, right. So I think that obviously it's important that people have a good standard of living, that they have money. We all want those things, but I also think there has to be some attention paid to large swaths of the country that are not, sharing in any of the prosperity of the last, 20 to 30 years.
It's like, I've heard you talk about how in 20 years, the Democrats became Republicans and the Republicans became the Democrats.
Right.
And it's really so true in so many ways because you look at the Democrats used to talk like that.
Yeah.
But it got changed into all they want to do is create one big social safety net. It's just giveaways, government giveaways, you're a single mother, here's another check.
Right.
As opposed to Trump's approach, which seems to be, let me change the whole environment around you so you have more working opportunities. Let me lighten your tax burden if you're a waitress.
Right.
As opposed to just let me dump a bunch of free phones or goodies on you so that you'll keep voting for me.
The Democratic Party was purchased by Wall Street, and Wall Street has ideas about how the way the country should function. Wall Street wants endless supply of cheap labor. They want open borders. The Koch brothers loved open borders. It was because it was an endless supply of cheap labor. It broke the back of the working class. It destroyed unions, and it provided companies with low wage labor so that their profits went up. None of those profits were shared with their workers.
But they got bigger mansions at the top.
Got bigger mansions at the top. And the Democratic Party became completely purchased by Wall Street. And then identity politics is then kind of manifested as a way to convince people that actually they are interested in changing things. But by changing things, they don't mean giving you health care. They mean giving you like a trans Batman.
Right.
That's what they're doing, right? So they're basically
or Snow White who hates Snow White.
Snow White who's just not into it, right? Who thinks it's like some type of rape fantasy or something, like it's a children's book. But it becomes a great, there's a great quote, and it's for things to stay the same, they must change, or something of that nature. Things must change to stay the same.
Yeah.
What the Democratic Party has become is a party that says we're going to give you a female CEO, but we're not going to give you any bit more, of a pathway to a life. Mm-hmm. So we're going to give you
better feel good about the fact that there's a female CEO. You better feel good about
the fact that there's progress in this very aesthetic area that doesn't matter really to your life. Mm-hmm. Other than to say, well, that's nice,
Yeah.
But most people are concerned with the financial reality of their own family.
What do you make of, as a comedian, of Trump and his comedy skills?
He's the funniest politician ever. And I think a lot of it is he doesn't really know that he's being funny. I think he's just being honest in his way.
Yeah.
Right? Yep. So he's just calling things the way he sees it. He's really good at it. And, and it doesn't mean honest in the global sense because he'll say things that aren't true. No politician is. But when he says things that are funny, I think it's because people are not used to hearing that from a politician.
The best example is the one where he gave the deposition in the E. Jean Carroll case against him, and the lawyer said, did you say it's okay when you're a celebrity to grab him by the P word?
Yeah.
When you're a celebrity, they let you do it? And he said, yes, that's because, for thousands of years, that's just been the way it is, unfortunately. Or fortunately. It's just him.
No, what makes him effective is that he understands that there's a way that you can communicate that whether the people don't stop listening.
Yes.
That's a big part of it.
Yeah.
So many politicians, you turn them off.
Very hard to turn out when Trump's up.
You will never turn him off.
Right? You don't know where it's going.
I've said I'm going to watch 10 minutes of his speech, and it's an hour and a half.
Yes.
And I watched the whole thing.
Yes.
Because there's a musicality to it. It's like jazz. He comes in and out, and he goes from this thing to that thing, and it's very much a stream of consciousness.
Yes, he did the EO on the faucets, making showers great again, the free flow of water. And he's talking about how keeping his beautiful hair. He likes to shampoo his beautiful hair.
Well, he also doesn't patronize people. I remember, you had Anna Dashram, they brought up a great point of he shows up to this rally late, and he complained about his private plane, that it wasn't working. And he goes, they screw you, they keep you on the runway. He's not pretending that he can empathize fully with someone who's, in a different financial situation. He's saying, this is who I am. This is the way I see it. There's an authenticity to it, even though people hate it.
Yeah. Nor is he running around calling himself a founder.
People hate it.
As a founder.
Right. He's right.
I have some experience with this.
I think people hate it. I think there's a snobbery to it where people look at him and go, we don't like that he represents America.
Mm-hmm.
We don't like that.
Not that America.
Yeah, right. We'd rather someone from Harvard, even though he went to a great school, but we'd rather someone who understands that there's a certain language that we all speak and he doesn't speak it.
Mm-hmm. Now, you were in Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
Now you're in LA.
I'm back and forth between New York, where I grew up, and then LA and Austin too sometimes.
In the new special, again, it's called I'm Your Mother. It's on Netflix starting. It hits April 15th?
April 15th.
April 15th,
Tuesday.
tax day.
Thank you.
You can remember this will be your soothing balm on tax day.
Yes.
You can watch I'm Your Mother.
If you're getting beaten up on tax day.
With Tim Dillon.
Launch a jam brand.
And you do a bit on LA and what a mess it is in so many ways, including homelessness. Let's watch a little bit of that in SOT 28.
The LA City Council has given up. This is how much they've given up. I swear to God, they considered giving you a tax credit if you opened your house to a homeless person. I swear to God, they were like, you got a house? What are we even talking about? You hate taxes, right? Yeah. Well, meet your son. He's 38 years old. He loves fentanyl. Hug your boy. Hug your boy.
Did you do it? Were you tempted?
Yeah, no, I was. Part of the thing is that the solutions that are proposed are always as insane as the problem in LA. So whenever they started thinking about that, they go, we could just give people tax credits to move people into their house that, are homeless.
What could possibly go wrong? So you have a situation where, it really is, it's a beautiful state. It's an important place, and it's like run by complete lunatics. Yeah, absolutely.
Complete lunatics.
So when I hear you talk about that and Gavin Newsom, I don't know, would you ever consider throwing your own hat in the ring?
Well, not at the moment, but I could get bored.
Oh.
And if I get bored, then perhaps political campaigns do seem fun. Here's what doesn't seem fun: governing.
Yeah. That's why Gavin's doing what we're doing.
Seems tough.
Right? He's like, this is boring.
He's trying to do this.
Yeah.
It seems fun to run. Everyone get on the bus.
Yeah.
We're all drinking coffee. The polls are in. Get them. That seems fun. Once you get in there and you then have to figure out a way to fix this, it becomes a real problem.
And there's a lot of ribbon
I was in
cutting.
downtown LA the other night. There's a nice place, and I was there. Me and my friend had one of the best restaurants in LA is downtown, and we went to dinner, and we're sitting there, and they always try to downplay it. Him and his wife are like, "There's pockets, it's fine." There's pockets. And then in the middle of the street, there was a woman just with a blanket over her going like this, and the blanket's moving, and she's screaming. And I said, what's this? And they go, oh, well, she's there all the time. And I go, oh, so it's really just getting people used to a certain level of decay. And that's really what it is. It's just, you just explain it away. You go, oh, that woman, and then my friend goes, well, the problem is it's a meth town.
Oh, God.
And he goes, if they were on heroin, they'd sleep. But they're on meth, so they start fires. And then he
really
goes like
splitting
this.
hairs.
And he goes like this, let's get the scallops. They're great. So that's how normalized hell has become.
Yeah.
We've normalized hell. We've normalized decay. And that's how bad it's gotten, that people just don't care.
I got 39 seconds to the heart out. Again, the special, I'm Your Mother.
Yes.
In 30 seconds, why is it called that?
Well, because anyone can be anything now. So if I'm going to orient myself in this world, I'd like to do it as your mother.
Just
because
so you're
your
in
mother
charge.
gets to tell you what to do and be loud and fat and nasty.
And we still love her.
And we have to love mom.
Tim Dillon, we definitely love it. Don't forget, okay, it's called I'm Your Mother. It's on Netflix next week. You will laugh. I don't think you'll cry, but you'll fall even more in love with Tim. It's great to see you.
Thank you again.
It was a pleasure.
I appreciate it.
Check it out. Have a great weekend, everyone. If you're a business owner, listen up. Outdated systems are costing you time, money, and opportunity. thousands of companies have modernized with FYSI's AI integration and solutions. FYSI implements smart automation and predictive insights that sharpen your competitive edge. This is what separates billion-dollar companies from small businesses, and FYSI can help you make the leap. Don't wait. Get your free $5,000 risk assessment today. Use promo code Megyn and visit FYSI.com/Megyn or just call 800-877-4000 today. That's promo code Megyn and visit FYSI.com/Megyn or call 800-877-4000 today for your free $5,000 risk assessment.